You know, unspoken anger has this terrifying ability to warp into something deeply, deeply destructive. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we are tackling a pretty heavy but absolutely crucial topic, the dark psychology of indirect retaliation.
So, have you ever been so angry at a partner you literally couldn't speak? It's a completely universal frustration, right? Sometimes we just lose our words and need a little space. That initial communication breakdown? Well, that's something almost all of us can relate to. Okay, let's dive right into this.
But here's where things take a really serious turn. The core issue we're looking at today happens when this totally relatable anger is weaponized against innocent bystanders. This is what we call indirect retaliation. It's the act of harming vulnerable targets, we're talking about children or animals, specifically as a means to punish a partner.
Now, I promise we aren't just going to dwell on the darkness here. To understand how this works, and more importantly, how to fix it, we'll be covering the indirect retaliation trap, the psychology of shifting anger, why people target the vulnerable, how this retaliation repeats itself, and finally, rebuilding your moral compass.
So part 1, the indirect retaliation trap, or when anger shifts focus.
The second indirect retaliation begins. The very nature of an argument fundamentally changes. It completely shifts away from the actual issue, what was wrong, and it morphs into this toxic mission of how can I cause the most pain? It's like the original source of the fight is just entirely forgotten, completely replaced by a singular drive to inflict maximum emotional damage on the other person.
Which brings us to part 2, the psychology of shifting anger. Basically, why we avoid direct confrontation in the first place.
Look, direct confrontation is hard. It's really hard. It comes with the risk of losing the argument, getting talked back to, or worst of all for some, showing vulnerability. So when people feel like they can't win with words, or they're terrified of showing weakness, they look for a shortcut. Indirect retaliation just feels easier. It bypasses the fair fight entirely, attacking what the partner loves, like a beloved pet or a child, to guarantee a hit. Imagine, say, snapping at the family dog just because you're losing a heated argument about finances with your spouse. It provides an easier, completely unfair target.
And behind that action is this deeply dangerous internal justification. I was hurt, so I am justified in doing this. It's incredibly toxic. Because their original anger is real, the perpetrator uses their own pain to completely eclipse the absolute unreasonableness of their abusive actions. They literally convince themselves that because they were wronged, anything, and I mean anything they do in response, is simply part of making their partner understand their pain.
Let's move to part 3. Why target the vulnerable? This is the truly tragic cost of avoiding direct conflict.
It's a horrifying reality to consider, but children and animals are chosen as targets for 3 devastating reasons. Number 1, they cannot escape their environment. Number 2, they can't fight back effectively. And number 3, their distress is highly, highly visible to the partner. Make no mistake, attacking these targets isn't a show of strength. It's honestly a cowardly way to maintain one's own emotional state against victims who literally cannot escape.
And this brilliantly but tragically illustrates the core fallout here. While the perpetrator is just trying to send this twisted message to their partner, the innocent targets internalize it completely differently. The child tragically ends up believing, I am to blame for this, and the animal is thrust into a state of unpredictable terror. The couple might move on, but these innocent bystanders are left with independent, lifelong trauma.
That takes us to part 4, how retaliation repeats and the addiction to tension release.
We have to understand that this is a learned, habit-forming behavior. Let's walk through this psychological reward loop. It starts with step 1, extreme tension and anger. Then step 2, they attack a vulnerable target. Step 3, the partner shows distress. Maybe they cry, panic, or just submit. And then step 4, tension drops, creating a false sense of victory. Seeing their partner break down actually causes the attacker's own stress to plummet. And that creates an incredibly dangerous psychological addiction to this cycle. The next time they feel stressed, they're going to reach right back for that same toxic shortcut.
And watch how this moral decay builds over time. In week 1, sure, there might be some initial guilt. But by month 1, that self-justification kicks in. Well, they made me do it. By year 1, the moral brakes fail completely. Repeatedly justifying these actions literally erases the line of what they thought they would never, ever do. Eventually, the moment the perpetrator is stressed out or exhausted, that protective boundary is just entirely gone.
But here is the good news. Part 5, Rebuilding Your Moral Compass.
This destructive cycle can absolutely be broken.
The critical first step here is decoupling. You have got to separate your valid pain from your terrible actions. What your partner did to you, that may be a completely valid, real emotional hurt. But what you did to the child or the animal, that is unjustified, separate abuse. It's like mixing oil and water. The two are not the same problem. You must never, ever use your valid pain to justify the latter.
So to actually stop this cycle, you need to establish strict boundaries. And this is key. You have to do it when you are calm. Never vent anger on children. Never use pet care as a weapon. And never make big decisions while you're furious. You have to set these firm what not to do rules right now during peacetime. Because let me tell you, in the heat of a furious fight, a broken moral compass is not going to save you. Your predetermined boundaries will. This brings us to a highly effective psychological tool we call the thin wall strategy. Basically, you build a thin wall of time between the impulse and the execution. Sleep on it. Step into another room. Give yourself just enough time to kill that impulsive urge to retaliate. Building in that little bit of space allows you to realize, hey, wait, there are actually other choices here besides inflicting pain.
Which leaves us with this final, powerful question for today's explainer. Will you let your anger manipulate someone else's life? Walking away isn't losing. It is a firm, moral declaration that you are in control of your own actions, and you're choosing to stop the cycle of abuse right now. So, the next time the tension rises, ask yourself, who is really paying the price for your anger?